pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you join me in a moment of silence for men and women in uniform? You might want to be thinking about the folks in Farmington today who lost a firefighter. A few more are in critical condition. Thank you. We'll open the meeting in a minute or two after 6. Number 2 on the agenda tonight is marijuana petition. A vote to accept the petition placed on the November 5th ballot.
I'll make a motion that we place the vote to accept the petition and place it on the Selectmen's warrant for June 2020.
Second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of placing it on the ballot for June 2020, say aye.
Oh, jeez. I was not
Opposed? Opposed. Okay. Next.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion. We vote to accept the petition and place it on the November 5th ballot.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Are we allowed to change votes, Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me?
Are we allowed to change votes?
Sure.
I made a mistake during that.
He got voted down. He
Okay.
got voted down.
He has a right to change his vote.
Sure. Hey, you're not locked into one vote.
No, I just want to make sure that.
If you change your mind, you can vote the other way. Sure.
Yep.
As far as I know.
Okay. You want- Let the record show that the motion was defeated 4-1. Okay, we have a motion moved and seconded to accept the petition and put it on the November 5th ballot. Discussion.
It was presented to us by the petition, by the public, and we have to follow the rules. Otherwise, we're gonna start looking at we'd have to look at other petitions, and it would open a whole can of worms. There's a lot of petitions from, for donation requests that are all petitioned, and we don't mess with them, we don't change anything on them, we don't tell them that they can't be on the June ballot, that they would have to have a different time. I think it's cut and dry, and it's legal, and it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Anybody else on the board?
According to, this is the information that Tricia shared with us at our last meeting. It says, contrary to popular belief, the petitioners do not have the authority to choose a date of this special meeting or vote. The municipal officers must call a meeting, but they have the final say on setting the date. And the statute that covers this just simply says, it's one sentence. The municipal officers shall either insert a particular article in the next warrant issued, or shall call within 60 days a special town meeting for its consideration. We don't have any local referendums that are set to be voted on November 5th. So this, it's a very simple article, very cut and dry, either or. We have, the petitioners have no right, it's very clear in the law, to ask or require that we set or honor the date they requested.
Incidentally, I did receive your email. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that same language, and I don't disagree with Cindy at all. She's absolutely right. But what that says to me is that we're going to vote on this thing in June. We're going to vote on it whenever we set a special meeting for its consideration. I'm not interested in whipping it anymore. So we're either going to vote on it now or we're going to vote on it later.
Anything else from the board?
I think it's just a matter of providing the public time to be educated on a very controversial subject that's been voted down already. So I don't think, I really don't think that, less than 2 months, a month and a half's time is sufficient.
Anything else? What? Val, you had your hand up first.
Yes, one,
Can you start off by telling everybody who you are, so it's a...
I'm Valerie Zapolsky, I'm here on behalf of RFA. At the last meeting, there was a vote by you to send it to the lawyer with specific questions. I would like to know what the result of that.
I'll be glad to read it to you.
was. Thank you.
It was sent to legal as the motion requested, and legal came back, and it's, John sent it to our legal, Steve Langsdor. John, as we discussed, this ordinance has enough material differences from the previously defeated ordinance to not make it subject to the Vassalboro ping pong case, which was brought up here. The ballot question as written is fine. No, the board cannot change the language at all. Please schedule a special meeting to allow the vote by the board to occur so that the 45-day absentee ballot deadline is met. There is a requirement of a public hearing at least 10 days before the election with a 7-day notice of the hearing. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
Thank you.
So we will be posting a public hearing. We'll be obviously meet within the 10 days prior to with a 7-day notice prior to.
Is there time for 45 days to make the absentee ballot for people that are leaving town?
Yes,
That's why
because we
we're-
can schedule the meeting tonight. That'll put us within the deadline.
No, that's all I'm saying.
Public hearing.
But
The public hearing, no, but you always said how there's printing of the ballot needs 14 days before.
the meeting tonight, if it's moved forward, gives the town clerk all the time she needs to do the job.
So people 45 days ahead of time could get their absentee ballot before they leave town, before the vote.
30. The selectmen are required to get the information to the town clerk 45 days in advance, so the clerk can have the ballots ready 30 days.
30 days.
Okay?
That issue was not.
Chris?
Yep. Chris Farmer, 17 High Street. I've reviewed and I've heard what the legal counsel has said on that. Obviously, his determination is that it's not a ping pong. I think that the overall content and intent, it is. Rather than this turning into a legal quagmire, which I think it could either way, especially since there's at least 2 people I know that can get affidavits that say that they were led to false pretenses to sign the petition. I think a middle ground is to have the vote in June on the warrant. There's nothing else scheduled for a local referendum in November 5th that I understand that we brought forward. So to have it in June, since the intent of the petitioner made at the last meeting was that there wasn't enough people to vote or to participate in it from when we did it last time, to do it in an off-year election in November when there's nothing else on the local referendum, the voter count will be even lower. So my argument is that you take it into that in the spirit of making sure that there is enough people to vote and get educated on it. It is an ordinance, it's several pages, those type of things. I'm perfectly ready. You want to go November 5th? I'll beat it again, just like we beat it last time, if that's what we have to do. But I think it should have enough time for people to digest it and allow it to go with a regular warrant where it was. That's where we voted on it last time. People had some time to look at it. They made a decision. It got voted down, 60-40 split. And, Luke put out a very aggressive post today on our forum thing saying lies and deceit and all this stuff, and rallied all his constituents to show up, and I don't see many of them here. It's the same usual of us that are saying, we're okay with whatever you want to do in your home, but we don't want to have that's set up in the downtown district. This amended ordinance gives a lot more flexibility. And I'd also like it confirmed from each of the selectmen here at the meeting today to the public for the record that they feel they have no conflict of interest on this vote, because I believe that some do. And I would like that knowledge for the record, so it's on tape. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hold on, Joe?
I agree with Chris on most of that stuff. I just happened to be eating dinner at Parkside one day. I see two characters across the street at the post office. I see they was up to something, so after a while I decided I'd go over and check it out. And that's what they was doing. I couldn't really get out of them what they was up to. And I see a couple of people, I don't know who he's talking about, but I see some people sign that. I don't think they knew what they were signing. Just my 2 cents first. And I wondered what the special selectmen's meeting's about here tonight. I mean, I don't think a lot of people even know about what's going on.
Joe, you texted me, I told you that.
Right.
I
How
told
many-
you.
That's me. How many in the whole town? I'm talking about the whole town.
Yeah, but this isn't a public hearing necessarily.
They did the post 5 days.
Okay, I'll answer the questions, okay? As I texted you before, a petition, a valid petition, which was verified by our town clerk, was brought before the town, and we were asked at our last selectmen's meeting to send it to legal, which we did. We did exactly as we were asked at the last meeting. Legal came back, as I just read to you, and gave us our marching orders, is what we're to do.
So you had to have a special meeting tonight?
We had to have,
They couldn't go to the next selectmen's meeting?
the time frame didn't work out if we went to the next selectmen's
What
meeting.
what time frame? For the petition?
The-
Oh,
Yeah.
This meeting is solely to meet the November 5th election request. That doesn't need to be granted. Solely for that purpose.
That's not confusing. You got a special selectmen's meeting for a special thing,
For, yeah.
instead of just regular selectmen's meeting, is that right?
Look, let's be real clear about something. This isn't, I don't look at this as I'm giving anybody any special attention. I'm looking at this as if somebody else in this town came to us with a petition that the Boy Scouts can have a toll booth to raise money, and it's a legal binding petition, and we have to get it done by a certain date. It's my responsibility to get that done, Joe. This is nothing to do, in my mind, with the context of what's going on here. It's to follow the rules. We were also, just to point out, told at that meeting that requested that we review our manual, which is the Maine Municipal Officers Manual, and we were specifically to look at page 36, 37, et cetera. And in it, I read through this thing, and it gave us clear delineation of what we had to do. We were then presented with a packet that I did not have time to review about this Vassalboro ping pong thing. Chris knows a lot about it. I can tell you an awful lot about how to cater weddings and fix boats, but I'm not your lawyer here.
Right.
And when they suggested that it go to legal, I thought that was a good idea and the way to go. So I didn't like the total context of the motion, so I voted against it, but I do think legal was the way to go. Next hand up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, Jeff Zapolsky.
Hi, Jeff.
36 Marion Drive. I appreciate that you did take it to legal, and...
Sit down, make yourself
Okay,
comfortable.
but, you know, there are lots of different legal opinions, and I'm not sure, maybe you can tell me if you're required to follow the recommendation of the lawyer, if it's a suggestion, a guideline, or if it's actually a mandate. Because when I look at this, in my opinion, it doesn't meet the smell test of being significantly different than the last regulation, the last ordinance that was defeated. To me, there are more similarities than there are differences. And so I personally would disagree with the lawyer's opinion. I think there may be other legal opinions out there that would also disagree.
I think there's an old saying, you put 10 lawyers in a room, you're going to have 10 different opinions. However, we did exactly what was requested. We sent it to our legal.
Can you reread
And we came back with that. I'll get back to you. We're gonna go right around the room, okay? So I can't disagree with what you're saying. On the other hand, we did what we were asked to do. Yes, sir, in the back.
John Hooper.
Hi, John.
I don't think the marching orders say that you have to accept the petition. How do you?
Thank you.
I just wanted to, I'm not gonna rehash things from last time, but I had 3 questions as a result of this and a couple of concerns, if you would allow me to express them. And the first 2 questions are related, because one is what happens if it's defeated? Does this come back again and again? I mean, how many times do we keep seeing this? That's just a question I'm asking, okay? And I know you can't answer that, but as I look at this, like, okay, how many times is this going to keep coming back? On the other side, if it is passed, and you don't know which way it's going to go, would those of us who were quite comfortable with the way the vote would in June have the same opportunity to circulate a petition, get enough signatures, and then bring it back for a vote again? Or would we be told that, well, that's not fair because these folks are now going into business? In effect, creating a one-way door. Once you step through, you can't back out. And I said last time that, you know, once you allow a second vote, how can you then disallow a third? Or, you know, you're going to create the very thing that the Vassarboro ordinance was trying to, you know, prevent. So that's why, you know, first 2 questions, regardless of which way it goes, I can see this continuing on, and we really have a hard time saying no. The third question, though, is you talked about a public hearing, and is that simply an informational hearing? What purpose does that serve? Because if we can't change it, because my understanding is what I'm hearing is that the ordinance as proposed has to go forward, and if we're within that 45 days, the clerk wouldn't have a chance to do anything with it. So if we have a public hearing, is it simply to dot the I and cross the T so that we've covered all our bases, but really it serves no purpose because we can't change anything, we can't affect anything. It's really just so that we can say, yes, we held a public hearing. And if that's the case, you know, like, well, wait a minute, that seems... So those are my 3 questions, you know, the public hearing and what happens. And my 2 concerns, I'm concerned we might be setting a precedent to allow ordinance to be created this way. And I'm not aware, because I'm new to town, only about 12 years, so there may have been other things that's happened, but, you know, my understanding is that we have an ordinance committee, because the ordinance committee, we send it to them, they work through it, they try to hear input, they do research, then it goes, we get legal opinions, and they come back and we kind of hash this out, and then it goes to the public and after a series of hearings. If this is the case, I mean, I could create an ordinance, as you said, gee, I don't want any parades on Sunday before 1 o'clock, and get 60 people to sign it, and then it's going to go on the ballot. You know, I mean, it's just, I'm not sure we want to go down that course. It seems like it's not the you know, if people talk about what we do finances that way, but those aren't ordinances. That's a request for funding. An ordinance is a legally binding law that we're creating that everyone has to live by. And there's a difference. So we kept it compared the right thing. So I'm concerned about that. And then finally, the whole process does appear to be a bit rushed. It gives the impression of, oh, we got to get this done. And I come away feeling like there's a little bit of pressure, like someone's telling me, well, see, you should have passed the last one because we're just going to bring this one, which is, it is changed. The clearances are changed. I recommend you look at those, only 350 feet instead of 750 or 500. I measured out today distances, and it leaves some gaps in downtown. You know, there are some concerns about that. But the whole process appears rushed, and I feel like I'm being intimidated to some degree, not by you folks, but just the whole process that says, well, you didn't like this one, well, you're not going to like this one even more, so you should vote for this one. Kind of trying to present the impression that this is inevitable, trying to, you know, foster that. And I don't agree with that. I think we have to have honest discussion. We have to bring it back, and it may pass. I may not like it, but it may pass. But, you know, we spent a lot of time on that last ordinance. And we did a lot of input, and it took some heat from both sides, and the people said no. So now essentially we're saying we're disregarding what the local folks, because it was a local ordinance, local town said. So thank you for listening. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Tony?
Tony McNaughton, 18 Spotted Fawn Lane, Rangeley. I don't want you to think the clergy are ganging up on me here. One fellow and another. I had two questions. One is, are you all legally bound to put before the public a vote every time someone brings a petition or in this case, a request for an ordinance? You have to accept that and do that? Where's the boundary of that? You mentioned the illustration of the Boy Scouts and the toll. And any of us can constantly bring these before you, but I would assume you could, and I may be wrong, can say, well, thank you, we received it, but we're not, as a select board, going to agree to put that before the public. The second thing is the public voted. The public didn't vote on how far it should be from the school, or how far it should be from this, or whether it's downtown, or whether it's around the corner, or up by the transfer station. They voted the concept of selling marijuana for whatever purposes, medical and or recreational, not to be here in Rangeley. We were one of the 14 municipalities, only 14 municipalities in the state have voted to have this. We voted not to. As it seems to me that in a democracy, when the public votes, that says something. Or you just keep coming back, as you asked and others, just constantly come back on this thing wittily. I said two, I'll add three things if I can. I didn't like the fact that where it was on the ballot was so far down, after you read through all that stuff, it just was, shall there be? And the town voted no. So it seems to me that you must have some ability to not accept every one of these kind of ordinance proposals. So it keeps coming in back doors or ping pong, whatever word you want to use.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
I've been doing this job since the mid-90s. We've seen a lot of petitions. And we were under the impression that we actually have to accept them. And we have. And the last one I remember was the recycling. And it passed, and a month later they had a petition out to reverse it, and they did. We had a special town meeting and they reversed it. We never saw another, petition to reverse the reverse. So I don't know. I just always been under the impression that we, once they have the rights, they have enough signatures and the right people signed them and all that stuff, that we're bound just to put it on the ballot.
I'm going to read something to you all here, and then I'm going to get to my colleagues here. This is something that I stated at the last meeting. On page 36 of our manual, it said, this is one of the more controversial and misunderstood topics municipal officers will encounter, and it states MRSA 30A, so on and so forth. It says that on a written petition signed by a number of voters equal to at least 10% of the vote cast in the last gubernatorial election, so on and so forth, it becomes a legal petition. I'm not going to read the entire thing, it's quite lengthy. So it does give us opportunities to say no if it's an unreasonable petition. I don't believe this is an unreasonable petition for two reasons. First of all, it's been something that you all admittedly, as an organization, the ordinance committee, have worked on for a long time.
Yes.
So a lot of effort has been put into this ordinance that was voted down.
That was voted down.
And then there was it was voted down, and then the correct procedure was done for a petition. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not going to debate any of that because that's not within my realm. I'm going to ask John if he would just do some clarifications and go from there.
On your questions about are there cases where the selectmen can reject a petition? Yes. And this is just a couple of examples, but another situation in which courts have upheld the refusal of a petition as reasonable is where the petition requested an action that would be illegal if passed. So, in a case, even if enacted, petitioned ordinance would be invalid. In a case decided by the Maine Supreme Judicial Court, it was held that the municipal officers of Portland could not be compelled by the court to submit to the voters an ordinance that, if ratified, would be invalid. It would be a useless act on the part of the municipal officers to clear the court, which then said a court will not compel the performance of a useless act. And then there's another example of an article granting a tax exemption not authorized by state law. So no municipalities can pass anything dealing with taxes, that's the state's prerogative to do. So there are some examples of
None of them.
Yeah. Ethan?
Let Chris go, I want to hear what he has. That's okay.
Before you, Chris, you had your hand up, sir?
Yeah, hi.
Who are you?
My name's Scott Anderson. I've been working with Luke on the petition for Rangeley, and I know I'm not the town's attorney, but I think I agree with the town's attorney that this process normally is on the pathway to getting to the voters, and it's the voters ultimately that are supposed to make this decision. And for things that would be illegal, or that Vassalboro case was the classic ping pong where it was a school funding and it was like, yes, build the gym, and then somebody wanted no, build the gym, where it's just a simple yes or no. Those are not usually allowed to go forward, but this right to petition the government to enact new laws is actually protected by the Maine Constitution. And so normally the idea is that provided that it's illegal, provided it's not exactly the same thing, there is this process to allow issues to go to the voters again. Things change, the language in the ordinance change, people may not agree with it, but the hope is that this ultimately gets decided by the voters, not a much smaller group. And on the timing piece, Councilor's right, there's some discretion here, but normally the way most towns do it is it just goes before the voters at the next time the voters are getting to vote, and so that would be November. And we appreciate that there was a pause so that the town could check with the town attorney to make sure everything was okay. We think the town attorney arced in and said, yes, it's okay, go ahead and send it to the voters. And as a result, I think it's good, and we appreciate that you're having the meeting tonight to stay on track, and we're hopeful that it'll go to the voters in November, which is what the petitioners that signed this were anticipating.
Thank you. Chris?
So, two questions. John read the whole section on, said illegal. Does it clarify if it's illegal under state law or federal law?
it doesn't, this is from the state election manual.
And last I knew, sale of cannabis CBD is still illegal under federal law, correct? So, want to bring that up. And then the second part was, when you read the legal opinion from Attorney Langsdorff, the same gentleman, anyways, he's had temper tantrums and meetings, but the point is
Chris?
he didn't say
Chris?
specifically.
Chris?
He didn't say specifically that you had to. It said it was suggested, correctly? Can you reread that? Because I thought I heard it said it was encouraged or suggested but not required.
I'm going to read it one more time. There's no suggestion in there, all right? And in the future, until we have a new town attorney and you all agree to send it to our town attorney, don't cast any dispersions on any of that, okay? Because I'm doing exactly what you wanted us to do that night.
Yeah, and I also wanted someone in Langsdorff to read.
Well, you know what?
I've seen his work.
John, as we discussed, this ordinance has enough material differences from the previously defeated ordinance to not make it subject to the Vassalboro ping pong case. The ballot question as written is fine. No, the board cannot change the language at all. Please schedule the meeting to allow the vote by the board to occur so that a 45-day absentee ballot deadline is met. This is a requirement of the public hearing at least 10 days before the election and a 7-day notice of that here. There's no suggestion in there. Yes, Cindy?
However, he doesn't give a date. He doesn't say that the vote must happen on such and such a date. He is just giving timelines for a meeting or for a vote regarding this citizen's petition. There's no date in that email.
Please schedule a meeting to allow the vote by the board to occur so that 45-day absentee ballots deadline can be met. That is where we're at right now.
John? Did you ask him about the November ballot date?
That was in the petition.
Okay,
What he's
so
responding
the-
to November 5th. So, but what, I do want to let you know what exactly we asked him to
Right.
provide from the last meeting was, can we accept the petition or not? What's next if we accept it? Does Cindy's handout apply? And can we make changes to the petition ordinance as submitted? So that's what we had asked him to decide, and we sent him the proposed new ordinance, the ordinance that was voted on last June at town meeting, and what you had provided to us. So he had all the information in the petition itself with the signatures in it, and the actual wording of the ballot. So I think we covered everything that we
We're asked to cover.
were asked to cover at the last meeting.
Ethan?
I read through this manual, page 36. I read through the printout that Cindy gave us. A lot of good information. Cindy's not wrong, John's not wrong, the lawyer's not wrong. There's a whole bunch of writing here and a little bit of leeway as I read it. On that page 36, it's also echoed in Cindy's printout. It talks about the 10% number of votes cast gubernatorial election, what you need to get a petition going. And then it says, if it's, in a nutshell, if it's legal, this is my language, the municipal officer shall either insert a particular article in the next warrant issued, or shall within 60 days call a special town meeting for its consideration. No, it does not have to go on November. That's what we're voting on. It doesn't have to. Everyone in this room has a feeling about this whole thing. Everyone in this room has either strong or some kind of opinion about this, including everybody behind here. None of us have a crystal ball. You all could get what you want, and I'm not pointing at anybody. Whoever's opposed to this could go in June and you could lose. Or this could go in November and you could win. Or the other group could win. None of us have a crystal ball to figure this out. The way I see it, we need to put this on the ballot from what I read in the information given to me by the Maine Municipal Association manuals. That's the only decisions I can make are based on our attorney who is versed in stuff like this, which I am not, and on the documents that are given to us to learn how to be municipal officers. You all might not have any idea how I feel about this subject. You shouldn't. But the way I see it, this should go on the ballot because it's legal as it appears. It's all put together right. We've done our due diligence. If you want to win the question, work harder than the other guy.
I do have an answer for your question about the government. It's the government. That's why it sometimes doesn't make any sense.
What's that?
Anything. No, the stuff on the paper.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, you read that whole thing and they almost contradict themselves in spots and stuff. It's government. It's the way it works, I'm afraid.
Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two things. One, he said that that things come to the voters to make a law, like the whole one that went to the statewide about getting pot legalized. But it was a one-sentence or so question, do you want to decriminalize or whatever it was we voted on statewide, and it passed that yes, we want to decriminalize it. It wasn't a 20-page law that we voted on. The fact that we approved that then went to the legislature to create a law. And so that's the problem that I have with this. It isn't saying, do we want it to go back to the ordinance committee to work on it? It's just saying, this is it. These guys made it up, didn't go through committee. They made it a lot looser, and I just think that is inappropriate, skirting the reason, and that's a bad example. And true, the lawyer said that, but that's one thing. Second thing is that there is the enactment procedure from municipality ordinances and whatever, it's 3002, and it says that the subject matter of a proposed ordinance shall be reduced to the question. And so you can change the lead-up question, not the part of the ordinance, but that lead-up question that everybody signed that ballot, which is a very confusing question. It feels like it should be, shall the ordinance entitled be enacted? And that's what you should change that to, because I don't think that's exactly what that says. And the title is not in quotes, so people weren't clear that they were voting on something specific, even though it does say the, and most of them didn't read what they were saying because they weren't being told that that's what they were saying. So that you do have the ability to make the question clearer.
Yes.
Janet Wilson, 12 Lake Street. And I have a question for you that I'm sorry, I know it's been answered before, but I honestly can't remember what the answer to the question is. Why can we not put on the ballot, do you favor commercial sale, distribution, and growth of marijuana in Rangeley, yes or no? Why can't it be that simple and then a ordinance is created?
It could be, but that's not the petition that was brought before the town. I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but
Well, no, I just.
you have to remember how we got to this point, and we're at this point now because of specific language that was drafted by the petitioners,
Right.
and that's what we're working.
But I thought we were told way back when we were doing it for the June ballot that that could not be how it was on the ballot, and I don't remember why that was.
I don't have an answer for that.
May I answer that?
Sure.
If I'm remembering correctly.
You two aren't talking at home about this? I mean,
Not about this.
seriously. That question was brought up, and the concern was raised. In the past, there have been things like that that have happened, and it's created some legal issues. I don't remember the exact issue that had occurred, and so the underlying feeling was if we're going to vote yes or no, there should be some type of legislation tied to it so we know what we're doing. I think that, if I remember clearly, that was the reason why we didn't, not that we couldn't, but we chose not to accept a straight up down vote.
Thank you. Gary,
Yes, we've heard some,
name please.
Gary Schaefer,
Thank you, Gary.
8th Stratton Road. We've heard some reading from our attorney, we've heard some reading from John, reference to state law. I have some reading that I want to present to you as well. And this is from Alex Berenson. He's a writer for it's a publication called Imprimus, and the title is called Marijuana, Mental Illness and Violence. And the reason I want to bring this to the forefront is because John mentioned that unless there's a danger to the public, if there's an imminent danger to the public, then if there is one, then it would be a reason why you would not present the petition. And I just want to read a couple of the captions from this article, and this is not just his opinion. This is information he got from doctors from around the world, from Italy, from Australia, from the United States. These are medical professionals who state that over the past 30 years, psychiatrists and epidemiologists have turned speculation about marijuana dangers into science. Yet over the same period, a shrewd and expensive lobbying campaign has pushed public attitudes about marijuana the other way, and the effects are now becoming apparent. Almost everything you think you know about the health effects of cannabis, almost everything advocates and the media have told you for a generation is wrong. They've told you marijuana has different medical uses. Perhaps they do. In reality, the marijuana and the THC, its active ingredient, have shown to work in only a few narrow conditions. They are most commonly prescribed for pain relief, but they're rarely tested against other pain relief drugs like ibuprofen. And in July, a large 4-year study of patients with chronic pain in Australia showed cannabis use was associated with greater pain over time. After an extensive review, this is not by me, not by this gentleman, by the National Academy of Medicine found in 2017, that cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing schizophrenia and other psychosis. The higher the use, the greater the risk. Also, the regular cannabis use is likely to increase the risk for developing anxiety disorder. More children who use this, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, they're finding more and more schizophrenia and mental illness. Colorado is now a free cannabis state. We all know about what's happening there. And I don't have the exact caption here, but now the doctors in the ERs are having to be trained in how to deal more with schizophrenia and mental health issues in juveniles than they are with injuries because of the extreme cannabis use. I consider that an extreme health issue. I would hope that everybody here listening to that and I have the article here. This is not something I contrived. This is something that is from Imprimis about the mental illness of marijuana and violence.
Can I interrupt you, Gary?
You may.
Okay. In this process that Cindy alluded to earlier, there needs to be some more education. That's some people's feelings. And in this process, there will be a public hearing. It will be announced appropriately so that there's plenty of time for people to schedule their time to be at that public hearing. Scott, this goes back to a little bit about what you said earlier that I didn't have an opportunity to address. It's not just dotting the i's, it's not just crossing the t's. That public hearing is designed to make people aware of the issues that they're going to vote for or against.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm very hesitant to support, this is not going to set well with a few people, and I know I'll be quoted for years to come. And I'm all right with that, I have pretty broad shoulders. But I remember when I was working on the farm, everybody told me eggs were bad for you. 10 years later, you had to have 2 a day. 3 years later, the study showed that. So my point being is that needs to come up at the public hearing. There will be an opportunity to discuss this further. And Mr. Farmer has told everybody he's going to win on this one, so there's the public hearing opportunity to bring this one out one more time. And I think that's the way the process should go, and I don't believe that petitions should be stymied because we don't like the content.
Can I just say, we've got 21 bars in this town, and do you want to declare them a health hazard to the town of Rangeley?
Yes.
Good luck there.
Yes.
Well, good drink. I don't have a problem with that, but good luck doing that.
Oh, I understand, but.
Okay.
They're also.
Yes?
Just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Who gets to write what's put on the ballot?
Who gets the what?
Who gets to write what is
Question.
put on the ballot?
Well, so far, none have been rejected, so that I'm aware of.
No, it's, no,
Go
what he's
ahead.
asking. It's already been written. The
Who
attorney,
wrote it?
it's the, Luke Saroyce did.
Well, that's below it.
Well,
That's how it happens
Oh, wait a
all the
minute, wait a
time.
minute. It was written in conjunction with lawyer review too. He made that very clear
He
a
signed
couple
it.
of meetings. Excuse me?
He signed it.
Yeah,
Luke signed it. He's a big boy.
yeah.
You wanna read
Right.
it, Steve?
Go ahead, John.
The article will read, do you support the passage and adoption of the Town of Rangeley Marijuana Business Regulation Ordinance, regulating medical and adult use marijuana businesses within Rangeley? That's what people will see when they vote.
Pretty clear.
Yes, sir?
Steve, Tony McNaught again. If it is going to go on the ballot in November, I think we need to do all that we can to let people know there is such a vote. I was in New Jersey last week. When I got back, my wife said, there's something about marijuana going to be talked about. I said, how do you know? She said, there's something in the post office. I said, oh. Now, I happened to go somewhere today, and somebody said, well, you may want to go to the selectmen's meeting tonight because they're going to be discussing an issue like this, which could reverse what the town voted on. I think really needs, and I don't have any answers to this, but I think we need to do all that we can to try to post it in various places and things that it'll be in. Now, I know we're going to have a forum in which to discuss that, but I do think it needs to have a wide audience so it doesn't sneak through. There's a perception, I don't hold it, but there's a perception by lots of people that things often get hidden or are not really put out there in a way that everyone knows. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but I do know that Rangeley does not excel on tremendous publicity for things. You hear about it, like I heard about this meeting tonight. I didn't see it in the Highlander. Now again, there's a timing when that comes out and when you get things to it. But I think an issue of this magnitude is talked about in a way that when the vote comes, people really understand what they're saying. So we don't have the summer vote coming back next year and saying, what? I thought you people voted this down and now it's here again? We don't want that kind of feeling in town. Whatever is voted on, there needs to be cohesiveness.
Thank you.
And the last thing I'd say, I'm not here to debate whether it's healthy for you or not. I heard a doctor the other day interviewed on television talking about the vaping issue. And he was saying, is this bad? Should we have vaping? Should we prohibit it? Should it be only for people over 18 or what? And he said, well, I don't have an answer for that, but I will tell you, sucking things into your lungs is not the best thing for your health. So I said, you make your decision. But I kind of go by that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I've heard a lot about how many signatures that there are. Can we get an official of the record, how many were certified that had their full legal address on the post office box and their location?
Yep.
It's required under our piece.
She's looking.
Trish, do you have that?
There's quite a few, I saw the petition had a lot of PO boxes and some just had locations of their business as their.
While she's looking around, I will say that at the last meeting, Chris, you all heard me ask if we had the proper signatures, documentation. It was verified by our town clerk. So I'm going to assume it's still there unless there was some changes.
I'm just adding,
Okay.
ever add them all.
So Steve, if you could clarify, because I understand some of the petitions get kicked out of the plantations because they only use PO boxes instead of street addresses. And they
Yeah.
didn't put the
Don't-
town.
I don't know
we're
about
not
the
required
plantations.
to do that in Rangeley.
Right. I don't know about the plantations. I just turned to our town clerk
So
and she
I
got.
just want to know for future, if I do a petition, all I need is town of Rangeley on it for the name, for the location.
120.
Excuse me 1 second. I've worked very hard at never interrupting you. I listen to everything you have to say. I'm very polite about it. I would appreciate the same courtesy.
Yes, sir.
All right? Go ahead, Trish.
There's 123, and in my training in elections and petitions, the state always encourages us to accept a signature if we can read, see the printed signature and read the printed name, even if it's not quite the address. Because addresses change and people don't necessarily change them in the voter reg, and they want you to be able to encourage people to vote, sign petitions and all that, and not discourage. So as long as I can read a printed name or that, then I'm allowed to accept it.
And you said how many again?
123.
So
How many did they actually, they only had like, they only needed 30 something, right?
64.
66.
Okay.
Would you say they needed 64? Thank you.
Thanks
Did you have
for
your hand
clarifying.
up, Sid?
Yep, I don't think I did.
Okay. Anybody else here? John, anything else to add? Yes.
Millie Hoekstra.
Hi, Millie.
I know Steve. Lynn Way in Rangeley. I guess I'm just very disappointed in the process. I agree everyone has the right to petition, and that is a right. I appreciated the process we went through last year with this being coming from the ordinance committee. We had due process, we were able to give our input and everything. We had plenty of time to do that. I'm just feeling very rushed on this deadline. Is there any real reason we can't wait until June to do this? Or, personally, I'm leaving before the absentee ballots are available. I will be not back in town in order to vote. So I am not going to be able to vote on this again, which I already voted in June.
Excuse me, are you leaving the country?
I'm leaving the state of Maine.
Yeah, but you can still request the ballot be sent to you?
I requested it be emailed, and she said it cannot be emailed.
Can't be sent by mail?
It can be sent by mail.
But I'm not going to be
And I
in
offered
one, we've been through this.
Okay.
How
I'm trying to
going
make it.
I
so-
know, I've been trying, Steve, the last 3 days to figure
Yeah.
out how I'm going to do this. It's probably not possible, because it's not going to be printed, okay? I'm not going to be in one location at a specific time that she can mail it to that spot.
I see. Okay.
So that's the problem.
Yep.
As Tony mentioned, there's 14 municipalities out of 488 in the state that have opted in, correct?
I don't know.
That is the statistics.
Yeah.
Get that paper, Steve, report.
That
Okay,
is
no,
the statistics.
yeah.
So I'm just asking why the rush to do it? The state, number one, has not set any rules and probably will not have rules until at least January, February, or March. Why can't we wait until there is a full town meeting, like we did last year, and have the opportunity to express our opinions? I don't see the benefit of the rush. I guess that's my question.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody want to respond?
I got some.
Yes.
And I don't even know if this is possible, but it's a suggestion. Perhaps we need to look into an ordinance that states that no ordinance goes through unless it goes through committee.
Can't.
But right now-
State statute won't allow you to do that.
Or,
State
say again?
statute won't allow you to do that.
Okay, and there it is, but
The
is it
same process happens at state level and federal level,
okay, so that can't happen.
so we can't control that.
All right. So that's,
We have committees.
yeah, no one here, I don't believe anybody here, I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, believes that our committee process is bad, or that we shouldn't put stuff through committee to get it up here, or to get it on a ballot. But it doesn't have to happen that way, apparently.
Okay. Before I go to you, John, would you just, as best you can, explain how our ordinances, the ordinance committee is what in Rangeley?
It's a local thing you decided to do, not all towns.
It's advisory, yeah.
It's the point I was getting to is, it's an advisory group in nature, Millie. It's a group that gives advice to the Board of Selectmen.
No, they're.
John, did we not go through this with the lawyer?
Yeah, they're advisory to you, and you decide what
Okay.
goes on.
We tell them what ordinances to work on, and then they come to us with a draft.
Yeah, absolutely, I
So
wasn't
they don't
suggesting
advise
that.
us as far as what ordinances we need to draft. We instruct, the Board of Selectmen
They
instruct.
advise us on the ordinance that they produce.
So they present the board and the
And the
public with a
planning board,
draft.
or the code enforcement officer too, also.
Steve, can I make one comment?
Go ahead.
Somebody had mentioned they don't really know what it all means, I think. And one thing that people need to know is any ordinance that's proposed, you just have that small sentence on the ballot, but we'll have copies of the whole ordinance at the counter there, and you should all come in and read it, and pick one up and read it, so.
Available online too, correct?
And it's online?
And we have them here.
Yeah, thank you.
You have them online?
How we consolidated
They're on the
laws.
counter.
Yep.
Once you vote, if you vote to present it to the public, then that whole ordinance will be on the town's website,
Okay,
proposed ordinance.
all right, Heather?
He just said what I was getting ready to say.
Okay.
I
Yes,
just wanted
Chris.
to make sure everybody knew that the wording is available in its entirety prior to the vote. I know that a lot of people missed it last time.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
The last time this ordinance went to vote at the town warrant, I requested that the 3-2 vote be shown on it, and it was said it would be, but somehow got missed. Is that allowed on a petition to do that? If it is, I would like that to happen as well, so that the community knows that it's not a 5-0 piece on this.
Okay,
If it's not, maybe it'll be 5-0,
I don't know.
but
I don't know, but
I'm willing to roll the dice on it.
yeah, you did ask that, and I said that it would be there, and it didn't. My apologies, I don't know where the glitch was, or if it can or can't be there. I don't know, but I'll find out for you. Okay. Yes,
Steve, Lynn Lewandowski, 25 School Street.
thank you.
I'm a little confused here. If we have an ordinance committee, number one, why doesn't this go to them and then back to you?
Because it was a petition.
Okay, so just because it's a petition?
That's correct.
The other thing is don't sit there and say online and at the post office and whatever. There are so many elderly people that do not have computers, and my opinion is, if this is gonna go through, all of this information needs to be mailed to every registered voter. None of this, oh, I found out it's the post office, and scuttlebutt says, blah, blah, blah. That didn't work real well last time, and that's one of the reasons there might be a lower voter turnout. And November is not the month to do it, because that's basically a Democratic month, and a lot of people say, well, you know, there's nothing on there for us, so we don't need to go out and vote. This is an important thing for the town. And if we voted to begin with not to have it in the town of Rangeley, why can't it be way the heck out someplace in the boonies? Why does it have to be in the town of Rangeley? I'm not understanding that. It isn't right, because Rangeley's a little tiny area. We have movie theaters, you know, the park, kids everywhere. So what's this with sticking this right in the middle of this town? I just think it's a rotten thing to do. If you want a future for Rangeley, I think it's not the thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my only beef is this process, this special meeting tonight. And that's my big beef with it. You're got a special meeting tonight, and as I can tell, get this on the ballot. I don't know any way you can look at it. Am I wrong?
You're entitled to your opinion, Joe. I mean, I'll tell you what we are doing is everything we've been asked to do, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing absolutely everything we are asked to do. And we're doing it in accordance to the law, and we're doing it in accordance to the motion that was made at the last meeting. Everything.
The law said you had to have a meeting tonight?
The motion was,
What law?
well,
Said you had to have a meeting
we've
tonight?
gone through this now a couple times. Go ahead, John. Fill in the blanks.
The selectmen can call a special meeting anytime they want.
The selectmen can, yes.
That's right.
So the selectmen are calling this special meeting.
Yeah, but remember too, there was a valid petition presented to the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah,
and there's a timestamp on it.
that's right.
Okay,
How many days you got to respond to that?
go ahead, Cindy.
If the selectmen had said, okay, you know, this will be included in on the June
Regular.
2020, we wouldn't need this meeting tonight. This meeting is simply to meet the timeline that has been requested on the petition for November 5th.
My thing is, why won't it next selectmen instead of this special one? It's my beef.
Because the petition requested a November, being on the November ballot. If we went to the next selectmen's meeting, it would not meet their requirement of the petition.
So you have there's a special meeting for this ordinance, you just said it.
Nobody's denying it.
Can I answer that? Answer to that?
Yes, sir.
My feeling, as I stated at the last meeting, which you weren't there, I don't think, Joe, was, I wanted this special meeting. I didn't call it. I got an email saying it was called, but I wanted this meeting. I stated that last meeting. You can look at the tape. And I also stated that I did not want us delaying this until the 23rd, which would put us one day out from getting it on the November ballot. I didn't want us doing that, being looked at as a stall tactic, being used by the Board of Selectmen to get it pushed off for something that we may or may not feel strongly about. So I figured it was fair enough, in my thoughts, to give it to the lawyer, have him report back to us, and have a meeting in time to get this on the ballot for the person to put the petition on it, whether I agree with the petition or not. But I didn't make the decision for the meeting, but I was for this meeting.
Okay.
To me, this is such a big issue, I can't imagine it not being on a regular town meeting vote. It's insane to me. It's such a big issue. It's insane.
One more time?
One more time.
Anything
There
new
is no
or
town meeting.
anything more to add?
We don't have
Excuse me,
town.
anything more to add?
I'm just presuming that it's going to be accepted, it'll be on the ballot. Now what I want to know is, what is the process available to the public to get it rescinded, to vote the opposite way? Do we have to have a petition, or can an ordinance be?
Get everybody to vote
Just
against it.
vote
What is the
against it.
process
All you gotta do is vote it
available
down.
to us?
Vote it down in
down.
November.
Hello.
It's pretty simple. Yeah.
Well, I understand.
There is another way. You can go to court. Go ahead, Chris, a little bit louder.
File an 80B motion if you disagree with the piece of what they've done. So you can go and file in court, and I don't think you're going to be able to pull it off.
It's a good question, sir. And, you know, your two ways is file what did you call it again, Chris? An A?
I think it's an AB, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've done that stuff in law school. But you can file what's called an administrative appeal of a board, because the Board of Selectmen is the highest rule of law in the municipality. So the only way to do it is to go to the court and say, we believe that the Board of Selectmen have erred in making this go forward. And you've got to file in there and spend a few $1,000s with an attorney and a copy. Most people don't bother with that.
So, well, again, this is the reason it went to legal. So that it would be reviewed, so that that particular instance would not occur, hopefully would not occur. You still have the right to do that. And then the second thing is to attend that public hearing. Again, everybody will be able to speak it for everything they want to say. You know me, I have not tried to shut anybody down. All right? Now, if we get redundant and we're going over the same ground over and over, I'll slow that down. But come to the public hearing, state your case again, and then make sure that everybody in town comes and votes. Is that fair?
That's fair.
One more time, Tony, is it something new?
Only, it's kind of to the town manager, Steve, you can rule me out of order if you wish, but it's the word request. I think you have every right to accept this petition and put it to a town vote. The request of the timeline of having to do it in November, it would seem to me that you have the ability to say no to that timeline. We're going to accept the document, put it to the vote, but we do not accept being demanded, being mandated that it'll be in November. It seems to me there's the word request applies legally.
That's true.
Where is the word request? Somebody point that out to me, please.
I heard, maybe I only heard it.
I've read this, Tony, 3 times now. There is no request in it. In the document we received with the petition, it gives us the time frame, the wordage, it gives us all that we need to send to legal. And legal's response was to honor the request. It is valid. Now, there is, within our framework, an opportunity for this board or any board in Maine, based upon the manual, to say no to it. You've all said this earlier, does it set up a dangerous precedent? I personally like the fact that all of you, in any given situation, can bring a valid petition to the higher authority in any town and be heard again. There may be new circumstances. They may be case studies, as Gary pointed out, that would change people's minds. It's incumbent upon us to bring that before everybody, not to turn the request process down. That's Steve Philbrick's feeling. And I won't rule you out of order. You're going to be able to speak. I don't want the ministry against me there.
You never have that.
Okay. You did bring that specter up a minute ago. I want to make sure I'm on the right side of that coin.
And I apologize, I only used the word.
I don't know. I was kind of hoping you'd bring some more ecclesiastical humor to the play here. John?
I only responded to request because I had heard somebody use that term in here, and that's why I was bringing it up.
Okay. John?
There's a paragraph in the manual that says request a specific meeting date. So I think I should read it, everybody can understand what that means. What if a petition specifies a date for the deadline for action on a petitioned article? We have stated in chapter 2 that it is the municipal officers who set the date and time of annual and special meeting. There's nothing in the petition statute that takes away this authority. Therefore, while municipal officers might try to comply with a request for political reasons, or because the petitioners have a good reason for demanding action on or by a certain date, there is no legal obligation to do so. Similarly, if a petition requests that a special meeting be called or that the issue goes to the annual town meeting, the municipal officers can decide to do the opposite of what is requested, as long as their decision is reasonable. I think that's the key to the whole paragraph.
And that's exactly why I brought that up. That's why I brought that up.
Whoa, one at a time, guys. You're ganging up again. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Steve, that's exactly why I brought that up. It's not the intent of what they're proposing to be voted on. It's a question that has come up several times as to the timeline of when to present that to the voting public. You, in my opinion, and I can be ruled again out of order, in my opinion, you have the ability to establish the time of the vote and what goes with it. And to me, that's part of what's being discussed here, so that there's enough time frame for the general public to be informed of this, know about it, debate it, whatever, and then come at it fully informed at the time of the vote. And it seems to me that it gives the appearance of rushing it through to get it on the ballot by November.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple things that are different. First, the petitions that were circulated that people signed actually had the requested date on it. So I think most of the folks that wanted to call this were aware of the date that was being proposed. That's not the same with every petition, but in this case, people that signed it were anticipating this coming up. Also, I think the provision of having reasonable ability to push things off is if you feel like there's some reason why there is a bad reason to move forward on the regular timeline. So the regular timeline for this petition, as presented to the signatories, was we're going to bring this before you in November, and that's what people signed off on. If there was some reason why you thought that was a bad idea, and I haven't heard anything other than, I don't like this ordinance, I don't want it in the town, well then, there might be a reason to push off. But I think the danger is that once the selectmen start picking different timelines than what the petitioner asked for, then there's a concern that you guys get held accountable for messing with the timing in a way that alters the outcome. The folks that went around and drafted this and collected these signatures asked the voters to decide when to do it and presented the signatures in time. We appreciate that a legal question came up and he wanted to send it to the town attorney, which is great. But I think the purpose of the meeting tonight is to just stay on track, because the answer by the town attorney to the legal question that was asked at the last meeting is, there is no problem here. There is nothing wrong with this ordinance. It's completely legal. Please send it to the voters and, try to keep on the same track that the petition signatories had asked for. So we don't think there's anything nefarious about the timing, but this is what people thought when they signed this, so we're just hoping that we can stay on that timing.
I personally don't see this as a time-sensitive issue. It's not like an organization that scouts the Little League players or something. They want to raise enough money to get uniforms because the season is impending and they want to have themselves out there. Can folks remember when we used to hold town meeting in this town? Okay, used to be held in the winter. And does anybody remember why we as a town decided to move it to June? Because we had more people here to address issues like this. We had more voter input, we had more voter discussion, and I believe it may have been in February when it was, one of the nastiest months in the winter, and it had low voter turnout then. It was decided to move our town meeting to June. Because folks, like Millie, folks who travel, who have second homeowners, who tend to leave this time of year. Sounds to me like a strategy of when there would be less voter turnout now than those who live here all the time, and would move it to a time that would be more beneficial than having the larger voter turnout, as might have been indicated in previous discussions. So my argument is, let's have it available in June. It's not a time-sensitive issue. When there are more people available, more people to be informed, more people who might pick up the Highlander or the Mountain Messenger in town because they don't get it delivered to them when they're out of town to know what's going on.
Thank you, Gary. Dave?
I'd like to move the vote.
How's the board feel?
This is not a public
Question?
hearing. This wasn't supposed to be a public hearing.
I don't care. These are my people and they're gonna talk.
Oh, no, I'm not
All right,
complaining, I'm just
they're
saying.
gonna talk.
The negative comments could be reduced.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, we've heard.
One more question?
Yeah, I just wanted to poll the board, if they're not willing to disclose it, it's fine. How many have read the ordinance front to back, the whole piece?
I read it.
I read it. Both of them.
And compared them?
Yeah. So did the attorneys.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so did the attorneys.
Okay. Anything else? I hate to do this to you. Could you read
No, I was gonna ask
Could
the
you-
same thing. Please
Yeah,
reread the
please.
motion.
It says to accept the petition and place it on the warrant for November 5th.
Any more discussion from the board? All those in favor? Opposed? Folks, before you leave,
Chris
There's two-
Chris wanted us each to comment on whether we had conflict of interest or bias.
okay,
as it relates
before
to
you
this.
folks leave, the petition process, I'm going to take a little bit of a moment of your time as the chairman and somebody I hope you all voted for. When the Board of Selectmen vote, it doesn't necessarily mean they have cast their personal opinion upon a vote. They're following the process and you've served here a long time. You know exactly what we go through with this. So please go away, go home thinking that. Do you have any conflict of interest?
Absolutely
Or
not.
bias?
Absolutely.
Do you?
I do not.
I do not. Do you?
No, except I wrote the first one.
Yeah, wait a minute, wait. You did that all by yourself?
Not all by
All right,
myself.
all right.
I was chairman of the ordinance committee.
Okay. Do you have any personal conflict? Okay. Fair enough? All right. One more thing I'd like you all to listen to. I've been asked to bring to my board here about writing a letter in support of Art Terrace's bid to purchase Saddleback. Would it be economically benefit? Would you like me to read it? It's very short.
At our next selectmen's meeting.
At the next one. Done. All set?
Motion adjourned?
Second? All in favor?
Wait, don't you have to set a hearing date?
What's that?
You have to set a hearing date?
Wasn't part of it to set a hearing?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you very much, Gary.
I've
Thank
been
you.
on the board a long time, so I remember this.
Give me my water. I got to douse him.
Sometime in October.
So,
October
October,
6th.
Gotta have it at least 10 days prior to the vote, and then you have to publish the hearing dates and the vote 7 days in advance of the hearing.
I would suggest before.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
I
10.
would suggest having
So-
it the day after.
We've got time to post a meeting for the 10th of October, which is 9th is, what's the purple dot mean?
Planning board.
Planning board.
Planning board.
If we do it on a selectmen's night, we may not have a selectmen's meeting till much before 10 o'clock, because I'm not going to shut anybody down. I'm just letting you know that right now. So I'd like to have it as its own date, give them their time to speak, and I don't care if it's 1 or 6 hours.
When will, can I ask a question?
Sure?
When will the absentee ballots be available? Because I would personally like to see us have the hearing before the absentee ballots are available.
Yeah, that's why I'm in that week. I think that gives you time, correct?
Is that the 10th?
Thursday.
I'm going to let Tricia tell me.
October 4th.
October
Or
4th.
October 7th, I'm not, that's a quick count.
You want to go October 2nd on Wednesday?
We're not here. That's
That's the date of the,
Town
I'm
shut
thinking
down.
Bangor.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
October 1st?
Are we back on the 3rd?
No.
Can I make a suggestion for a date?
You know you're gonna.
September 30th is the fifth Monday, so why don't you do it on the date that there wouldn't be any other meeting scheduled automatically, and then it's covered. And that gives you 2 weeks to get the date out. And
What's green say?
It's
September 30th.
It's a
what's the
fifth
green
Monday,
one?
so there wouldn't be any other regularly scheduled meeting, whether it's school board or anything.
Park
That's-
Commission.
Airport. It's the
Airport
last
commission.
Monday of the month, it's an airport commission. meeting.
Airport commission
You
meeting.
could probably have the meeting on fire.
They can meet
Okay.
on the 1st.
So we can't do it on the 30th?
Yeah, they're a 4:30 meeting, so you could just, if they have.
I'm fine with September 30th. That's cool.
Yeah, it works.
Everybody good with that here?
Date. Thank you.
Yep, you good with that?
As far as I can see.
Yep.
Okay.
30th?
Good. Thank you, Chris.
6?
September 30th,
On 6? Or 5?
Will that be here?
6 o'clock.
Here,
Must be.
or
Yeah.
have enough seating?
You know, I don't want to be crude or mean, but you are all the same people who were here at school.
That's true,
They're all the same people here in this room.
that's true. So,
Okay.
Let's,
Yeah, we'll hold it right here. You'll be here.
No, we're gonna be on vacation.
Oh,
But we'll be
that-
here October 10th.
I'll be here for the vote though, that's all right. I don't mind listening.
All righty, we got it.
So when is it?
Thank you, everyone.
September 30th.
All right, thank you.
And I'm not gonna track you down. Just read this real quick.
Was that 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.